CouplesConverse time again, and we're here to interact with a couple that we believe very important, very nice, very warm, very kind. We know them very well. Well, it's Youth Converse time. Elder John Rogers and myself are here, and those of you who are online with us, we hope that you'll be blessed as a result of our meeting together. At this time, we're just going to introduce our guest. This afternoon, Marissa and David Rogers. Will you come online just to show yourselves and introduce yourselves? There we go.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Rogers, and this is my wife, Marissa Rogers. We've been married for about 12 or 13. We've been married for about 12 years, and we have one lovely daughter, Camille Rogers. And my wife is a healthcare worker. She's an occupational therapist, working right now with people with intellectual disabilities. And yeah, she's awesome. We've been dating we dated for about 20 years before we got married. so we've been together for quite a long time.
All right, and this is David Rogers, my husband for the last 12 years. He's right.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm good with it. So he is also a healthcare provider, medical technologist profession, and currently works in healthcare regulations here at the Bermuda Health Council. We have been, I think, in this journey together, as he said, for a while, and really do enjoy doing a few things. One of those are being the healthcare directors at our Hamilton Seventh-day Adventist Church in the past few years. So it's one of those things that we enjoy talking about. So we're happy to be with you here today.
And so we want to thank you for being our guest this afternoon, and everyone who's online with us. They will be dealing with various health practices within the home. And so at this time, before my wife gets any time to say anything, I'm going to turn it over to Victoria, who's going to give us our first special selection. Victoria?
Till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in
Welcome again to Couples Converse, which is a segment of the Youth Converse program that we have at Emmanuel Seventh-day Adventist Church every week. We are thankful to have with us Marissa and David Rogers all the way from Bermuda. Some of us have known of them before. I know that our prayer ministry group have prayed especially and extensively for Marissa this year. So it's good that you can see her and see that she is doing actually very well. Thank you for tuning in. Our first question about health home practices, we are going to ask David the first question, and it has to do with regular eating at home. Marissa, I think you're the one in charge of most of the meals and all of that. So can you tell us a little bit about the practices that you have at home about meals?
So I guess it's really a work in progress. I think just being a husband and a wife, and when we were first married, I'm used to eating 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner. David, not so much. So it was really trying to figure out how we were going to work together and how we were going to eat. And so I think we agreed that it was important to have balanced meals, but sometimes I might be eating breakfast on my own. Now that we have a daughter, she's 7, it went through so many changes again. And we were really looking at, my daughter definitely wants breakfast first thing in the morning. And so she does that. Daddy may not do breakfast, but we do. And then I try to ensure that now we have menu planning. And so, on a Saturday night or a Sunday, I'm typically looking at what are we going to eat for the week so that we can have a balanced meal, and then our grocery shopping would align with what the meals we're planning for the week. So, 12 years, an extra person in the house sort of changes the practices, and we're always striving to have a mix of meals that are, sometimes it could be a meatless Monday or a vegan day, just really looking at having modesty in our approach to eating.
Okay. And David, meals, what are important, what is important to you when it comes to meal planning and all of that?
Well, I think my policy has always been eat what my wife cooks. So it's
I think that's a good one.
Yeah, that works in this family too.
It doesn't necessarily occupy a lot in my thought process. I typically cook maybe once a week or twice a week, depending. We've had to put things like the meal schedule in place because as our careers have changed, our involvement with our work has started to creep into more household time or family time. So we don't have the luxury of thinking for 20 minutes, well, what do I feel like? What should we eat? And having a discussion about it. It has definitely helped for us to prepare meals over the weekend to take a lot of the pressure off midweek meal preparation. My wife has started baking bread because in truth, it's more convenient or it's easier for her to bake the bread than for us to go to the grocery store and get it. Because we will sometimes let the pantry go down pretty low before we head out, just because of the busy schedule and ferrying our daughter to different places and things like that. So it really has been a mindful approach to meal preparation that's allowed us to be successful.
So that's interesting that you actually plan your meals for the week and that you bake bread. We should bake bread, shouldn't we?
If you would eat it.
Yeah.
Not getting in that.
What about snacking? And so you have planned meals, and you try to do that, but you don't do any snacking at all? And what kind of snacking do you do if you do snack?
Oh, the snacker just laughed for a second. He's the snacker. I'm the 3 meals a day person.
Okay.
Okay.
So typically, like I said, food is not necessarily the biggest thought process in my mind. I typically eat between 1 and 2 meals a day. I typically don't eat breakfast. I'll have something maybe at around 11, 12 o'clock, and then, like dinner. So there does tend to be opportunities to snack. However, we don't necessarily keep a lot of snack foods other than our child's lunch foods in the house. So by having it not available, it doesn't really tend to be a thought. And also, my daughter is not super interested in snacks.
So if I keep healthy snacks in the house, then hopefully they snack on the things that are healthy for them.
Like vegetables.
Good job.
And I would say that, that is a positive, that, he may not eat his 3 meals a day, but he's very much into raw vegetables. And my daughter is as well. So I definitely try to encourage having those healthy snacks, getting the fruit and vegetables in during the day.
That's interesting, because some of us really struggle with what are healthy snacks that we can keep around. What kind of snacks do you have then? If he's a snacker, but you have healthy snacks.
We don't have to call each other names.
So I can tell you some of the ones, and he will often pick them up as well. He loves pomegranates, the green sugar snap peas. He'll just get a whole bunch of them and put them in a container and take out a handful and eat. Cabbage, carrots are just some of those things that, again, surprisingly more than I would want to, he just will snack on. But then some of the other things that I try to keep in the house are things like popcorn and even some of the granola as a snack that has a lot of the ancient grains in there, have become favorites for my daughter.
Rice crackers.
I was gonna say rice crackers, multi-grain.
And I think the reason, that individuals eat things like chips or is the convenience. It's just there in a bag, you can reach your hand in and eat it. So if you prepare the healthy snacks ahead of time or just have them on hand, then you'll utilize them because it's easy. So cut up the apples, throw the lime juice on it, leave it in a container, and somebody will eat it eventually.
Okay. Nice tips there.
Very nice. Some people listening to you might think that because, David, you don't necessarily like eating, that you might have been living with some eating disorders. Well, what challenges from your experience in the health profession do you see with living with eating disorders and other practices? I'm not to say you have an eating disorder.
Once again, just calling people names.
I mean, I know we talked about it, and there's a few ways to look at it. Sometimes people have eating disorders from the fact that they have to have a special diet, if you want to put it that way, and it's more difficult if you have allergies, if you have sensitivities. So you have other things such as Crohn's disease that can have an issue with absorption, and you have to look at different types of eating habits. And so how does that have an impact on your family? And so, many times it may be looking at things that the family can eat together. So it's not separating out what one person can eat versus the other. But then it can also be eating disorders that might be more towards the mental health concerns that would be there. And so it's working with your medical professionals to look at what are some of the ways that you can support your family members if there are any challenges that they may have with their health. But, really being honest with everyone about how can we eat a balanced diet? How can we ensure that the food that we're eating is healthy and helpful? The Bible speaks a lot about healthy diets and making sure, with Daniel and his friends, how they ate differently from everyone else. And we're stronger and smarter for it. So, we have to definitely, knowing that our bodies are the temples of God, ensure that we do take care of not only our bodies, but as a family, ensuring that we look out for each other as well.
It's very interesting that you would bring that up, because Isaiah chapter 7 and verse 15 says, milk and honey he shall eat, that he may know to choose the good and avoid the evil. So what you do eat has a way of affecting whether or not we will choose right or evil. And so that's so true. What you eat is what you are, isn't it?
What about what you drink then? Do you have sugar-free? Do you think that sugar-free drinks, or what is your stance on water, versus?
I tell them, dear.
Okay, so I typically do not enjoy water. That's not my favorite beverage.
Right.
If sodas, I don't mind. I remember I was traveling one time in one of the European countries that have heavy sugar tax. And, the only thing readily available were beverages containing, aspartame or saccharin. And it was terrible. It's awful. So it's not my favorite. However, once again, like when we were talking about eating food limitations or allergies or disorders, in order to have food available that is good for the entire family, you have to make certain compromises or concessions. So one of the things that we've done is we have a soda machine. I will drink sparkling water all day, and my daughter would do it as well. So that was a way to encourage healthier choices with limited, limited.
Sure.
That's not what I was going to say, but limited downside, I guess. And similarly, when we were talking about snacking choices in the house, my daughter doesn't necessarily like fruits, but she will make up that deficit in vegetables. And, we could be very arbitrary or very rigid when dealing with her. But the accommodation is, okay, we will put things in the house that everybody can partake of.
Right.
So if you have an individual in your house who may be gluten, has a gluten allergy or other things, there are many options that will be edible.
Yeah,
that would be good for the entire family, so that no one left out.
You said that you really don't like water. And I heard one person say that if God wanted us to drink water, he would have made it taste good,
I agree. I absolutely agree.
And so what you say is that in order to drink that which is best for you, you adapt by adding a little bit of carbon dioxide to it to make it taste good, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and no aspartame.
And
and no aspartame.
Lemon juice, berries, those slices, all things that can definitely also make it very exciting for kids as well.
And it makes her feel very fancy to have, berries or lime wedges floating in her drink. So
Okay. So that's one way of getting our children, or even us as adults, to drink more water. You know, that's
I
really
think
cool.
fancy too.
But, well, what is your stance on diet? You know, diets are, different kinds of diets are around right now. It's almost like a fad. Everybody you talk with, they're on a diet, especially this COVID time. You know, we have people on set COVID diets of getting fat, but what are your stance on diets and, trying to incorporate that in, if you find yourself getting too heavy or not? Do you think fat diets are the way to go?
Well, I've always believed that, metabolism, while complex, is relatively simple. You eat the amount of calories that are required to maintain your level of activity. So if we are in a quarantine situation where you're not getting a lot of activity, then subsequently your caloric intake should be reduced. However, we do understand that food tastes nice and want to eat it. But there are ways to reduce calories in a reasonable way. One of the ways was having smaller plates, or purposely leaving a third of the food on your plate, or 15% of the food on your plate, just to ensure that you're reducing the number of calories that you're intaking. The difficulty of diets is they're not a lifestyle, not something that people can feasibly maintain. Even when they're doing dietary studies, typically dietary studies are only conducted over about 2 to 3 weeks, because the practitioners typically drop out or renege on the study requirements, just because it's very difficult to change the diet that you're used to. Because we have all these available carbohydrates and sugars that can be can have addictive or desirable qualities.
Okay.
That's interesting, but let's move on to another, topic, dealing with the exercise, like activity. Well, what's it like in your household?
So when you look at diet and exercise, I think we all have an ideal, and then reality sometimes sets in. And so what I've always tried to do is be purposeful in getting activity. I think one thing that we've done more recently, especially during lockdowns and COVID, is trying to get out to be active and take a walk on the weekend. So a Sabbath afternoon, on a Sunday morning, family going to a park or some other interesting location. We always laugh because my daughter doesn't particularly get excited about going for a walk. That's not exciting, not interesting. But what we found is if we say it's a scavenger hunt or a treasure hunt,
or going exploring,
or if we're going exploring to a new place, then she gets excited about it. And many times by the end of it, we're saying, well, I thought you weren't interested in going for a walk. We enjoyed the new place that we visited. And so that's been something we've incorporated into our family. But the other thing we try to work on as well, having, I guess, long days at work, is alternating days. And so, if I can do something in the morning on a Tuesday, then on the Wednesday, David may have something in the evening that he may do, going to the gym or otherwise. And so we are often trying to make it a consistent habit to get exercise that is, gets our heart pumping and will keep us overall healthy and managing as well our weight.
Okay. Just to let a little secret out, you and my boys were very young. They used to say, do we have to go to sports day? But not to embarrass anybody, but, now I hear you, to be out there running and walking and exercising, it's it's really nice to know that with maturity comes this example.
Necessary.
Well, I mean, it's not really a choice at this stage.
I found something in Adventist Home that speaks to this of life used to be simple when people used to have to like cut wood and live in nature, close to nature, and study its beauty and its mysteries. And then they would pass it on to their children from generation to generation. And this would profit them, the men and the women, to be strong. But today's life become artificial, and it robs us of the true building of the body and the mind and the soul. And if we don't try to put some of these old lessons and implant them in our families now, in our family practices, then we are going to lose out into the end. It is really, I think, for the older generation, we have several generations on the line. It would be like going to a gym before. Okay, we'll send you out to go look after the goats in the field, or to run after those, or to go cut some wood. You don't have the luxury of time to go and pay and go to a gym. How life has changed, you know, how life has changed.
And so we've looked at proper in nutrition, and for every family that looks a little bit different. And you've worked together to make this good for your family. To cut down on the unhealthy snacking. You eat regularly according to like your needs, because some people live to eat and some people eat to live, you know. And then when it comes to the emotional eating, you basically talked about like, you know, looking at those things that are going to help you when it comes to your mind development. You also talked about water as being important, and you've made a little adaptation so as to make it palatable. And as far as diets are concerned, you know, those fads come in and they go out. But what we need to do is implement into our lifestyle regular eating habits. And then exercise, you've talked about that too. So at this time, we're going to ask Victoria to put up our second musical selection, and then we'll be back shortly.
Welcome back to our program, Couples Converse with Emmanuel Church, where we are with David and Marissa Rogers from Bermuda, who are health professionals and who are talking with us about home health practices that will help us to streamline our lives or the lives in our homes and help us to do some things or adapt some things that can help us to have better living. So our next question is actually about sleep. And my husband was looking at it. I thought he was going to ask it, but I will go ahead and ask that question about sleep patterns. What was it like for you when you first got together? I'm sure you had, I don't know if there was any challenge with sleep patterns. And how do you regulate that? I know some people are morning people, some people are evening people. How does that work in your house? And, what do you recommend as healthy ways of adjusting sleep patterns?
Well, I think our sleep patterns really were similar. We're both night people. We're not so much morning people. I'm the most morning of the two of us. I tend to want to go to sleep a little earlier. I like to get my 8 hours in and get to bed before 12 so that I feel well rested in the morning. David, on the other hand, might want to stay up a little earlier. And so, I'm sorry, a little later. So we have managed that pretty well.
It's all about compromise, right? So if my wife wants to go to sleep at 10 and I want to go to sleep at 12, we go to sleep at
11? Really?
1.
Yeah. Doesn't usually happen. But I think one of the best ways we've been able to manage is with having my daughter, and especially when she was born, me being more of the morning person. I get up in the morning, I get breakfast, and then once she's finished with breakfast, then David takes over and helps with getting her dressed, and then I can start getting ready for the day. And so that's worked out really well for us as far as our sleeping patterns, because if I've had a bit more sleep, then I'm able to get up earlier and sort of get things started, and then he just chips in and takes over.
And then your sleep pattern conforms to your wake up times. So when I was working in a physician's office, I had to wake up considerably earlier. So I went to bed considerably earlier. So it's really about, coming to the accommodation that works for your family while still maintaining your personal health. We all know that 7-8 hours is probably the ideal, as long as you're doing everything in moderation. You typically have better outcomes, right?
So how does that affect your effectiveness in your professions? Mm-hmm. If you don't get, say, the recommended amount of sleep, the 8 hours, how do you see that?
You're just acting to make everything harder. It's going to be affected. Your mental acuity is going to be affected. Your willingness to do the work and go above and beyond. Your creativity is also affected. Typically, people look at having a lack of sleep sometimes as a badge of honor. Oh man, I worked so late last night, or I was up so late binge watching this or that. That's not a virtue that any of us should be striving for. Right. I think people use late nights as a crutch. Days are taken up with a lot of things we don't necessarily want to do, or work that we don't at some point find fulfilling. And so we use that nighttime where we're allowed to do whatever we want to do to pursue our interests as kind of a way to zone out or to get yourself ready for the next day, which is, it's a coping mechanism, but it's not necessarily the most healthy coping mechanism.
Right.
It's interesting, very interesting to me, because as you say that, I realize that that's what I do. There are many times that I don't feel like my day went adequate, or that I got my list done that I had to do, and then I stay up in the nights to get that done. And then I feel more productive. But then the next morning, I suffer
But you
for
pay
it.
for it the next morning.
Yeah,
And so if your goal is to have productive days, then you have to suffer the restful nights, right?
yeah.
But it really does feel good when you get a good night's sleep. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
it
we
does,
can
it
all
does.
agree on that.
I know, definitely. And I guess people have capitalized on that in terms of market, with the watches that we have now that it's saying, what are we sleeping? What's our sleep pattern like? What's your spin on that?
Well, it's interesting because I believe that, there are ways that we can be more mindful, and that one of the ways that the phone companies or, the electronic companies have capitalized on it, because our lives can be so busy. And so much of it is reminders set in place to say, hey, it's 10 o'clock, you're supposed to be getting ready for bed. And putting us in very much of a routine. So, there are simple ways without those electronics that do the same thing. It is great to not have your phones on and looking at them before you go to bed. They say that's great for sleep hygiene, that you should have wind down time. And so a half an hour before bed, turning off those electronics and maybe reading a book or
I thought you said
planning
we
your
should
day.
have wine.
Wind down time. But you could just set an alarm. You can use an egg timer. You can look at how you get into a routine, because your body has an internal clock. And so if you're consistent with the time that you go to sleep and wake up, it will be for you and your body to adjust. When we're going all over the place, it actually is quite taxing on the body. So, consistency is best from the research.
Nice thought. The body has an internal clock. We have to remember that.
When it comes to you're running your house, we have a little phrase that we use all the time, that cleanliness is next to godliness. Now, I've been to your house and it's pretty clean. How do you guys keep it clean with a child?
He said pretty clean.
Yeah, I know.
It's not as clean as Pastor and Mrs. Rogers' house, I can guarantee you. But I think we have over the years just tried to figure out how it's going to work. When it was just the two of us, it's easy to come home after your day of work, 9 to 5, clean the house, and then, have dinner and wash everything up. When we had an extra little one added to the house, when you're not getting any sleep and you're just trying to make sure that everyone's okay, we definitely saw that it suffered a bit and had to figure out a new way to make it work for us. Our jobs responsibilities have increased. And so now we have looked to a bit of a schedule. We have, every day there's something that we do that by the end of the week, it would mean that the house has been thoroughly cleaned. So, cleaning out the microwave on a Sunday to vacuuming on the Monday and dusting on the Tuesday, washing clothes every day. So it may take you 10 to 15 minutes a day, which is probably easier for us. But at the end of the week, we can say that, hey, the house is tidy and we're doing okay. I would tell you there was a big gap in the middle where we were feeling like we're just not getting this right. This one's working for us. And we've also had to look at, maybe having someone come in every couple of weeks to do a deep clean of the house, the mopping. So, we laugh all the time because when we think of our parents, we're saying, I don't remember anyone having to help them. And the house was always clean. And it's this expectation that, we should be able to do the same thing. And we found ourselves struggling. Although when we have some of those conversations, we find out actually somebody was helping. And I don't, we told ourselves, and we want to be like our parents. We want to be able to do it all. And I think as young couples, we try to do the same thing, and we don't always know the whole story. And so we've just gotten used to rolling with the punches, adapting and changing as changes. And I'm sure as our daughter gets older and she can do a lot more, then change again.
Yeah. I think you are right, because we had nannies for them. Each of the boys had their own nanny, and but then when you knew us, or when you were coming up, we were doing everything ourselves. By that time, we had struggled through that time when they were throwing everything all around the place and all of that. So yeah, we did have help, and also the fact that sometimes you make choices in life. For us, we made the choice of me staying home and bringing up the children until they were age 7. And though it was hard, it helped. It balanced out things. So definitely, I could see you needing help there. And so, because the laundry always needs to be done, linen needs to be changed, and the practices of teaching the children, washing their hands, doing all that sort of thing, have to be taught. So that's good, and I think it's a good idea to share with others that, yeah, if you can't do it alone, don't feel bad to have somebody to come in for 3 or 4 hours. You might say you can't afford it, but you find out that you save in just getting somebody to do 4 hours for you, than, and you spend your time more productive.
So now we're living in very challenging times with COVID-19, just all around the world. What in your profession now, what counsel would you give us when it comes to cleanliness?
When it comes to cleanliness, well, it's been advised that we should stay in our bubbles, and that your home is your primary bubble. So when people enter the home, of course, it is a good idea to implement hand washing, disinfecting,
Temperature check.
temperature.
My daughter's excited about doing temperature checks.
She's
That's
super
her
excited
job.
about that. But I definitely believe that we should follow the recommendation, being more conscious of touching our face, putting things in our mouth. Just being thoughtful about the actions that you're taking, ensuring that you're washing your hands for the full 30 seconds that's advised. Because at the end of the day, it's amazing that we have a pathogen that humans have no immunity towards. So no one in the population has immunity towards this. So, and it's highly infectious. This is a very novel pathogen that we're dealing with. And so it is always better to err on maybe the side of over caution than under, and have regrets about,
I think it's interesting though. I mean, the one thing that many of us probably notice is that in having to stay in your bubbles and wear a mask and hand washing focus, we didn't actually get a cold, a cough.
Yeah.
We actually realized that for the whole year, we actually hadn't been sick. And so it does show how much these practices benefit us. And we are more consistent with them, not just in the height of COVID, which we're all very concerned about catching. And we think, a cold, not a big deal. But, if we actually are consistent with those practices, then we can actually eliminate some of the health concerns that we may have because of contact.
That's true. I didn't have a cold this year. I didn't even realize that, but I didn't have a cold this year. So definitely, I don't know if I should implement that, what Camille is doing, that temperature check. We didn't go that far at our house, but maybe we need to get.
Well, the thing is, they see it being done everywhere else. And so again, of being able to use something that is a thermometer and be the official person. So it's something that we said, let's take ownership of that. Go ahead and do it.
And I mean, this is a medical household. So when we were working in the hospitals, the first thing you did is take off your clothes and go get a bath. You
Yeah.
know, we put it that, you know, take your shoes off because I've been walking on the hospital floor all day.
Yeah.
Take that off at the door, carry it in, make sure you don't track all that stuff into the house.
Right.
So, you know, that's the type of thought process and training that you kind of take forward into this sort of pandemic situation.
Okay, great. Because that's something we do here at home now too. We go out for the day. When we come in, we strip off those clothes and make sure that we have a bath, you know, never going into bed without doing that. So it's a practice that I think we all would benefit from. At this time, I'm going to encourage the audience to put their questions in the chat. I think everybody has gotten caught up in the conversation and nobody has remembered to put a question in the chat. So at this time, I'm going to encourage you to do that. My next question is about how important is it for us to have a family physician, and what does that do for us, you know, as a family?
Well, I guess I would say with a family physician, it is important that we're all getting checkups. You know, when you have a newborn, they go in to see the doctor at a regular schedule so that they can ensure that they're keeping healthy. As we get older, we don't have to go in as often. Usually it's recommended yearly or every 2 years, depending on the age range that you're in. And they are recommending at certain ages regular checks. And that's more what they call preventative practice, so that we are able to identify any concerns that might be emerging. They can identify if our cholesterol is getting high and we really should be encouraged to change our eating habits. And we need to ensure that we have someone that we can trust as we're getting older to let us know how we can best take care of ourselves. And that if we do have concerns, that they can take them seriously. And I think that's the one thing that I would be recommending, is that, you know, sometimes we have this overall trust of the doctor and don't question anything. And we have to be aware of, you know, what is normal for our bodies. And when we're feeling like something's not right, communicating it as soon as possible. And I'd rather have the physician tell me everything's okay than to find out that, you know, down the road, I wish I could have come to you sooner. So that's one thing that for us, it's always been important about having a family physician or a pediatrician for my daughter that is certainly looking out for the best interest and understand the things that are important to us.
The other thing to think about is when to change physicians. So, you know, the recommendation for me has always been 5 years. Every 5 years, you should look to say, okay, maybe I should have a discussion with another physician, not necessarily meaning that you change your physician, but there can be a set of complacency where a person, let's say, knows your diagnosis or knows about your conditions and may not be as thorough in looking at maybe other, you know, maybe some other problems. Or so it's a good idea. There's no problem, and you're not going to offend anybody by getting a second opinion periodically to ensure that, you know, you're doing everything.
I never thought of that, but it makes sense now that you say that, you know, people get used to what they know about you and then they don't check it as thoroughly because they already know that about you. So,
well, you know, you have a smart son, right?
Okay. All right. Moving right along to the next question.
That is so true.
Thank you. I get it from you.
Well, we're wrapping up with the last 5 minutes of our the conversation. We're dealing with, like, you know, physical health, the cleanliness of the home. What about like the mental health, the togetherness? What counsel would you give us when it comes to, like, what keeps you guys connected?
That's a really good question. And the first thing that comes to mind is my daughter, Camille, loves what she calls family time. She's dubbed family time. It tends to be around 7 o'clock after we've had dinner. And it's just time that we can spend together. You know, for her, many times she likes to watch something, and it could be of a variety of interests that she has or that we have. We've looked at watching old shows or movies with her, and even reading now has become a big thing for us all to do together. And so I think just having those moments and also being able to go out and exercise and explore together, it's been an important part of our family experience. And really, we ensure that we have that time on a daily basis. Even if we're getting in late, we spend that time before she goes to bed. And then, you know, we will make sure that we have that time again on the weekends as well.
Good. Well, we do have a question in the chat. It says, you appear to be a very interesting couple. As professionals, how do you balance family worship with your busy schedule?
It's difficult, I can tell you. Many times we are doing more of Sabbath school. No, I was going to say yes, like ensuring that we do Sabbath school lessons with our daughter, and also looking at like morning devotions, but trying to get us all together at the same time has been challenging. And so it's one of those areas that we're sort of going back and forth. I find that we will have a way of doing it and start it, and then it doesn't work, and we have to look at how do we change again. So I imagine that might have been a question that came up because they find it difficult. What I found beneficial, and it's tough, is having online school.
Yeah.
One of the things that it just opens up a whole extra hour or two of your day, and it makes it so much easier. And so, you know, we've been in online school for the last week, but this week she's supposed to go back. And so again, now we have to try to figure out what's going to work. And so, like I say, it's the changing and adapting and looking at what's working, what's not, and then seeing how you can improve. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. What our following don't know is that Marissa is, I think she's one of the managers at the mental health hospital in Bermuda. And David is also on the health council that regulates and puts out the various, you know, health rules for like the medical personnel in Bermuda. And so when they talk about busy schedules, we're talking about very busy people here. But the family that prays together stays together. And so you do find time to have that connection with God, which is very important, especially when you're rearing your child.
We're wrapping up now, and I just want to end with this quote from Adventist Zone, page 179, which says that true unity is not diplomacy, nor management, nor superhuman efforts to overcome difficulty, though this is so, but it is actually the union with Christ. God is glorified as we unite in harmonious action, and the closer we come to Christ is the nearer we will be to each other. So today I want to say thank you so very much for coming in and being with us. And we hope that Christ will continue to be your center and that you will move closer to him and then move closer to each other. At this time, we're going to have a closing prayer and then our last selection.
And just before we do pray, I'd just like to say, you do have the best parents, you know.
We would agree.
Me or her.
Well, I would say both of you. Definitely.
I want to say thanks to the congregation for putting up with us, you know, this last hour. We are proud parents of these two. And at this time, we're going to pray, Pastor.
We thank you, Lord, for the blessings of family. Family began in your mind. It was given to us as a wonderful gift. But within this institution, we realize that there are various segments that need to be worked out in such a way that we come out balanced. I thank you for Marissa and David and for all the other families members who have joined us today. And as we've tried to work through the various eras and dimensions of our lives, sometimes we've made mistakes, but we are so thankful that your grace is there to cover our shortfalls. We thank you, Lord, for our children. And as we rear them in the fear and admonition of the Lord, we pray your protecting care around about them. Protect the family institution as you've designed it. And we ask, Lord, that as we stray away from it, that you bring us back so that we could honor it by honoring you. Now may your grace rest upon us as we separate one from another, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
May God continue to bless the families at Emmanuel Church. We will now have our last special selection.
Oh Lord, my God, when I'm in awesome wonder, consider all thy works, thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy path throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! When Christ shall come, he shall overcome me. To take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Oh, then I shall hold in humble adoration and then throne of love. How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou art! How great thou